Articulation lengths. I know everyone's probably interested in learning how to tongue fast. You first have to learn how to use your tongue. Like in the previous chapter, remember, you have to tongue with your tongue and don't tongue with your air. Air stays constant, tongue with your tongue. There are 5 different lengths, at least 5 different lengths that you should have for articulation, ranging from obviously the longest legato articulation you can have to like the driest staccato that you can possibly have. The physical mechanism for creating those different lengths is really just an issue of time, right? If I play legato notes, I'm trying to get my tongue on the reed and off the reed as quickly as possible, right? I want as much sound as possible. If I want the shortest staccato possible, I want to get my reed back, I want to get my tongue back to the reed as quickly as possible once things sound. So I mean, don't think about adding pressure, don't think about adding any extra force. It's just a matter of timing. I'm going to give you some examples. Here they are. So I hope you can tell the difference between those 5. Again, I can give you sort of fractions for everything, but that's generally what you're looking for. Now, I do want to clarify one thing. The word staccato. Staccato there are a lot of sort of floating definitions for it. Staccato, in my opinion, is basically 50% the length of the note that's printed, right? If you have a quarter note, there's a dot on top like staccato, you basically will play an 8th note and an 8th rest. If you have a staccato 8th note, you'll play a 16th note and a 16th rest. It's a pretty good rule. It works for most things. Obviously, you have to take into context whatever piece you're playing. Sometimes it's too short or sometimes it's too long. But just do understand that that's the best way to think about staccato. In the previous video, I discussed why you have to stop the reed with your tongue on clarinet. For people who still are skeptical about this, I just want to show you one thing that is unique to the clarinet. Okay, I'm going to play an F major scale. Listen to this very carefully. What you're going to hear is separation, but also sound all the time. So that's not possible on any other wind instrument. Okay. Again, the reason why is because vibrating material going against a non-vibrating material. Okay. It's only possible because what I'm doing is I'm putting my tongue on the reed, but I'm still letting it have a sound, right? So if I do it on open G, right? I mean, you can tell that I'm not shutting it off completely. This is super important because this is the stroke you're going to use as you tongue faster. Because as you tongue faster, you just don't have time to sort of stop the reed at all. This is sort of like a medium staccato is what I call it. And it's a very, very useful articulation, and it's the articulation that you'll use for many, many, many circumstances. The exercise I like to do for this is what you hear a lot of singers do when they warm up, like choruses in particular. You'll hear them play sort of 5-note scales and then increase it by a half step. So like it's something like. And so on and so forth. You can keep getting higher and higher. The reason why I like this exercise is because you play the first 5 notes slurred, thinking about air, thinking about not blowing too hard, not blowing too soft, just blowing very, very easy as if everything was slurred. And then you play it again, maintaining the same airstream, but then just using your tongue to create separation, right? And then you play an arpeggio at the end. Most of the problems that people have once they have good fundamentals for articulation are air problems. For example, I know when I first started to learn clarinet, I was super insecure about my articulation. It was the one fundamental that no matter what I did, I just couldn't make it work. So anytime there was like a fast passage articulated or something that was hard to tongue, I would just blow as hard as I possibly can, which is like the worst thing that you could possibly do, right? Because it's hard enough to try to get something very, very light and balanced. Now you're just throwing everything you have at it, and you're creating all sorts of tension. It was one of the first. It was the first step in improving my articulation, was just trying to think about air as just being easy, calm, relaxed, and then you use your tongue to do all the work. Okay, so that's the exercise I recommend you do. Again, in the how to practice section, I'm going to go through sort of like a practice routine so that when you sit down to practice, you know exactly what to do.